Sega Mega Drive has Street Fighter 2, featuring group battle with exclusive multiple character selection for extended match play, and Mortal Kombat with secret codes for full arcade finishing moves. It's the only system that could take the punishment. Get over here! Sega! CGQ Plus.
Today on the show, we are moving the microphone closer. Today on the show, we are checking out the Big 6 control pad from Retrobit. This has the potential to be the last Sega Genesis controller that you will ever need. And before we get started, I'll just say real quick, I have no affiliation with Retrobit or its distributors. Nobody sent me this to review. I just wanted to get one because I'm a huge Sega fan. And so I pre-ordered one. It showed up on Thursday. Today is Saturday, and I am making the review video. So the selling point with this thing is that you're getting a 6-button controller in the form factor of a 3-button controller. And it's from Retrobit, so it's officially licensed. As I'll show you in a second, Retrobit has previously made officially licensed Sega Genesis controllers. Is it correct to call it? They're like the official Genesis controller. I think just calling it licensed is not correct. But they made like replacement original style 6-button controllers, and then now they're making these. So to give you the particulars just real fast on a piece of paper here, which is also from my Far Side desk calendar, I've just got the details here for you. This controller comes in 3 variations. You get what I've got here, which is the wired for console use version. So it's got a cable coming out of it that terminates in the 9-pin Sega Genesis style controller connector. You can also get a wired USB version, which from what I saw on Retrobit's website isn't out yet. And then finally, they have a wireless version, and that is a 2.4 gigahertz wireless version. So not Bluetooth, which, some people like the 2.4 gigahertz version better because I think it has less lag, supposedly. But then the flip side is if it was Bluetooth, you could easily use it with, like your computer or any other kind of Bluetooth-enabled device. But I personally don't mess around with wireless controllers for old consoles, so I have no interest in that one. Price. So the wireless version is the most expensive version. It's $35, $34.99. It does come, however, with receivers for both. You get a receiver you can put in your Genesis, and then you get a USB receiver that you could put in whatever, computer, Mister, Raspberry Pi, I guess, whatever you want. But that's $34.99. The USB wired version that isn't out yet is $19.99. And the version here that I got, the wired console version, is the cheapest. It's only $16.99. So yay for me. And you can get this currently at Castlemania Games, Stone Age Gamer, and Amazon. Or, when I go to local game shops, I do see Retrobit products being sold there. So if you have a local game store that you like to frequent, by all means, you should check with them. Now, very exciting. I've got a little bit of a different production style today. We are doing this video what I'm calling Lon Sideman style. So if anybody watches Lon Sideman's show, he kind of records his videos live. Like he has a multi-camera setup, and he can just flip through the cameras like on the fly. So there's not a whole lot of editing that happens afterwards. So that's what I've got set up. So I've got the camera that's facing me that you're seeing now, and then I can hit this, and now we've got a camera that is pointed down at my desk where you can see that I have a whole variety of Sega Genesis controllers. The 2 up here, obviously, these are original style 6-button controllers. On the left here is an original Sega controller from, the 90s. And then on the right here, this is the Retrobit modern version, which really is just a carbon copy of the old one. And then down here, I've just got 2 of the original 3-button controllers. This is like the original 3-button controller. And then over here on this side is sort of the slightly redesigned 3-button controller. You can see there's some cosmetic differences that don't really matter, but the main difference is that they changed the D-pad up a little bit in these later controllers, and they feel a lot closer to the 6-button version. Whereas the original 3-button D-pad, I mean, it's fine, but, I played some Streets of Rage with this one a little bit earlier, Streets of Rage 2, and I had a little bit of a hard time pulling off Axel's grand uppercut with that, because it's a little bit more difficult to hit that, the double tap the forward direction as opposed to doing it over here. So we're going to get rid of this one, and this one. And we're going to bring in the Big 6. So you can see the Big 6 looks, aside from the obvious button difference, looks just like an original 3-button Genesis controller. I don't know this for a fact. I wouldn't be surprised if Retrobit got the old molds from Sega for this pad and just made the necessary adjustments so that they could make the 6-button version. But I don't know that for a fact. I'm purely guessing. The big thing that I was here, we can go back to this. Hello. A concern that I had when I ordered this was, how was the controller going to feel? Was it going to feel cheap in my hands? Some of these controllers coming out these days, and I'm kind of not naming names, but not Retrobit, but there's certain controllers that you'll have in your hand. You're like, well, this feels ergonomically, maybe it's nice, but it sure feels like, maybe cheap, thin plastic. And, that was sort of a concern of mine when I got this. And I was happy to find when I opened the box and got it in my hands that it doesn't feel cheap at all. In fact, these controllers feel, I would say, the exact same in my hands. In fact, even the texture on, they're both like ever so slightly textured, and they feel the exact same in that way. This one, I don't know why, but I don't know if there's really going to be a good way to show this on camera if I like tilt it up. But on the Retrobit controller, I feel like the D-pad is sticking up just a little bit more. But that's not a problem, but I just thought it was something to point out. In fact, I don't know, I think maybe I like that better. As is the case with the old style 6-button controller, the buttons are a little bit smaller, I guess, just so that you can cram 6 of them into that small space. But these buttons are the exact same size as an original 6-button controller. But you can see A, B, and C over here are a little bit larger. So I don't think I have anything else to say about this controller, so that can go too. And we'll just talk about this one. So the only other things I wanted to mention about this one, well, you've got your mode button that all 6-button controllers have. And that is so if you're booting up a Genesis game that will not work with a 6-button pad plugged in, you can hold down the mode button, then turn on your Genesis, and it should work. Although one thing is that there are a few games for the Genesis, and I think it's literally a few, if not even just a couple, that won't work at all. Even if you do the mode thing with a 6-button controller plugged in. I should have looked it up. I didn't think about it before I started the video. I can't remember which games those are. They're like early Genesis games. And I don't know if that issue got fixed here. So after I'm done making the video, I'm going to look that up and I will put something in the video description addressing that. So if you have a question about that, please read the video description. I'll also put links in the video description to the 3 places where you can get this controller. The other thing I was just going to mention about it is, and Retrobit did the same thing with the old style 6-button controllers, and they did the same thing with their Sega Saturn controllers. It has a 10-foot cable on it, which whether that's a good thing or a bad thing really just depends on your use case. For me, actually, it's a bad thing. I normally sit at a desk like this when I'm playing video games. So I like controller cables to be as short as possible. And then if I'm going to be playing, like sitting in a chair away from the TV, I'll get out a extension cable. But I feel like I'm in the minority, and that most people that are going to buy something like this are going to be sitting in a chair or on a couch playing on their living room TV and aren't going to be that close to their console. And so they're going to want the 10-foot cable. So, my own selfish needs, I'd prefer a short cable, but I don't think that if Retrobit sold this with a short cable, I don't think that that would be a popular decision. So yeah, but I do need to undo this just at least a little bit. Well, I'll put this back together later. And then I brought down a few games for us to check out. If you can't talk about a six button controller and not play some Street Fighter 2. Sorry, there's the glare from the overhead light. I just figure, it's always Streets of Rage 2, right? And so let's just switch it up a little bit. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I feel like Streets of Rage 3 actually is a better test of the D-pad because there's more things that you can do by double tapping the D-pad. And then for no good reason whatsoever, I brought NHL 94. I mean, you don't need a good reason, do you, to play NHL 94? It is its own reason. So, yeah. And then if I'll go back here, you can see we're playing on a Mega SG. People always want to know, are you playing on real hardware? I wanted to play on real hardware. In fact, something that Corey and I were talking about recently on the podcast, which if you don't know, Corey and I have a podcast, link once again in the video description, is sort of this idea of swinging back the other way on YouTube and recording gameplay footage in composite, instead of RGB, and maybe this whole idea of chasing pixel perfection on YouTube is maybe a little bit silly because it's really not accurate to all of our memories that we have of playing these games as kids. So my point is just that I brought a Genesis down here because I was going to do this in composite. And then I realized I don't have a composite video cable for my Genesis anymore, so I'm going to buy one. So, okay, we've got it on. So now we switch to the third view. Check this out. Bam! So I had to mirror my face because otherwise I'm facing the wrong direction, and nobody likes that. So, yeah. All right, so I was having some issues with the capture card, and so I had to restart some stuff. But I had actually already started playing the game when the capture card started acting up, and I found kind of what I would say is an issue with this controller, actually, that I want to talk about before we even start playing the game. So I'm going to switch the view just so I can kind of talk about it more. But so it's with the D-pad, and I already checked with, compared it to an original controller. So here's the original 6-button controller. Freaking cables, man. All right, there we go. Okay, so if let's say you're pressing right. Here, let me move it up here a little bit. Well, that's out of focus. Okay, if I'm pressing right, if I have my finger only on this right side of the cross, I can press up, but it's not going to be enough to actually trigger the up, right? I can't hit a diagonal accidentally unless I roll my thumb over and do it on purpose. But with this controller, I can absolutely hit up just having my finger over here. And so playing Street Fighter 2, as I was, you can be doing the fireball move, and you can go too far and make Ryu jump without moving your thumb off of this right piece. So that's what I wanted to show you. And we'll go ahead and play the game, and you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not saying I think this is a deal breaker, but the D-pad, in my opinion, is kind of the most important part of a 6-button controller. I mean, obviously the 3 other buttons are very important, but I think, people have a tendency to use the 6-button controller, in 3-button situations because they want the D-pad. So, all right, we'll hit start. And like I said, I mean, Street Fighter 2 is the game you want to use to check out a 6-button controller. I'm not really very good at this game, and I haven't played it in a long time. So I guess I'm just making excuses for why maybe I'm not going to be great at it. I also noticed it's a little bit difficult to get the controller pushed into the controller port, but again, this is a Mega SG and not original hardware, so I don't know if that has something to do with it. It's not like I had to really cram it in there, but you had to use a little bit more force than with the original controller. So, important to note, in my opinion. Yeah, see, so like right there, like I was not trying to jump. Same thing right there. So, you know, some people could say it comes down to like technique, right? Because it's like the same thing if you're, you know, if you're in the arcade and you have a joystick with a square gate, it's on you not to go up too far. But, you know, maybe that's got something to do with, you know, I showed you how the D-pad here is sort of elevated, and I don't know if that has something to do with it. But same thing, I was not trying to jump right there. And, you know, these are the kind of problems I have playing the game, you know, with a square gate and an arcade stick. And it's like one of the reasons that I use octagonal gates in an arcade stick is specifically so that I don't have that happen. So, you know, I'm not really sure how many games you might be playing where this could be an issue, but I feel like absolutely with fighting games, it would be an issue. So it's an important thing to point out is that it's very easy to accidentally hit diagonals with this controller. Like it's too sensitive, but I just think that pivot point in the middle of the D-pad is maybe just too high. So like I was trying to do that, see, but I like accidentally jumped the first time. So I mean, we don't need to keep playing this really. I mostly just wanted to pile driver. I wanted to test the D-pad, and that's exactly why. So, you know, I said in the intro, like, oh, maybe this could be your last Genesis controller, and still, I mean, maybe it could, but I would say if you're mostly going to play fighting games, you know, then this D-pad thing is something to be aware of for sure. So, that's enough Street Fighter 2. So I'm going to go ahead and shut that off, and we'll put in some Streets of Rage 3. And, you know, normally I don't use the headphone jack on this Mega SG, and it's interesting because, you know, you can hear, even with the console not powered on, you can hear noise, you know, coming over. You know, I've got it coming out of the coming out of here, and then it's going into like a mixer basically. And even with the Mega SG turned off, I can hear electrical noise. And I mean, this is a higher quality audio cable, so it's not the audio cable. But okay, anyway, so we're gonna play some Streets of Rage 3. On the flip side, you know, since we're talking about the controller, I will say that the start button is definitely not a problem. The location, rather, of the start button. So, and we're not gonna watch the intro. We don't need to see that. I mean, yeah, you can hit all these double taps, you know, pretty easily. So that's good. It's still so loud in my... It's like no matter how much I turn it down in the mixer, it's like blasting into my ears. Yeah, so you can easily roll back and forth. You can run. those are all things that require the double tap. You can imagine like accidentally hitting a diagonal with this game. It just doesn't really matter that much. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, that's enough of that, I think. And then we'll just try some NHL 94 just for fun. I don't want this video turning into some kind of long Let's Play or something. It's really about, giving this Big 6 a shakedown. And I mean, my Mega SG has the custom firmware on it, so like I don't have to play, with the actual cartridges. But I don't know. It's like why, it's like smoke them if you got them, play them if you got them. I'm not doing manual control on the goalies. Come on, man. There we go. Oh, what are you doing? I was trying to do a one-timer. That's like one problem with these older hockey games, I feel like, is like, oh, that was a good one. You know who you're trying to pass to, but like somehow the game doesn't know, and like it'll just let the puck go right by. I'm gonna just hang on to that. But yeah, I mean, so far playing this game like this, it feels totally fine. I can't really think of like what other games would you need to be. See, look, that went past two people. What other games would you have to be real careful about not hitting like accidental diagonals? And I just feel like, fighting games have to be the most important one. But, I think it's kind of ironic that you have a controller that really was, the original 6-button controller, that was basically invented so that you could properly play fighting games that in the arcades required a kick harness on your Genesis, and the controller's not really, this replacement controller kind of makes it so that's the one genre of game where I would say that maybe if that's what you're wanting to play, this is not the controller you want. Sorry, I'm not even concentrating because I'm just trying to talk. All right. Well, I mean, is this even fun to watch? I don't think it really is. So that's enough of that. So okay. So where's the box? So that microphone. That's the Big 6 controller from Retrobit. So I don't know what grade. If I was going to give that a letter grade, I could maybe go B. But I don't know, man. Like I said, it's just like you're not going to be able to see it, but it's sticking up, and I don't know if that's got something to do with it. It's just like it feels like it's rocking on this giant pivot point. And like I said, I can push it this way, and you can rock it up, and you can hit up just by holding down on the right side. And depending on what kind of game you're planning on playing with that may or may not be a deal breaker for you, And I don't know, maybe there's some way to take the controller apart and modify it to fix that, but you shouldn't have to do that. So for $16.99, you can't complain too much. But I think if you saw this coming out and you were thinking, oh, this might be the end all of Genesis controllers, unfortunately, in my opinion, I wouldn't quite go that far. Like don't get rid of your original 6-button controllers just yet. So there you go. I guess buy with caution based on the kind of games that you're going to end up playing. So that's going to do it for this episode of Classic Gaming Quarterly. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.